The gentle hum of the research vessel's engine suddenly turned into a harsh, grinding noise that echoed through the ship's corridors. Inside the main control room, three alien figures jumped from their seats, their large eyes widening with fear. "Engine failure detected," the ship's computer announced in its calm voice. "Critical damage to primary and secondary systems." Lyra, the ship's captain, pressed her delicate fingers against the control panel. Her silvery skin reflected the red warning lights that now filled the room. "Report status," she commanded, trying to keep her voice steady. May, the science officer, quickly moved to the engineering display. Her antenna twitched nervously as she read the data. "This is bad, Captain. The radiation shield around the engine core is cracking. We're losing containment." The third crew member, Iris, was already running diagnostics at her station. Her transparent wings fluttered with anxiety, a natural response for their species when faced with danger. "We can't fix this ourselves. The damage is outside the ship, and we'd never survive an EVA in this gravity field." They all knew what she meant. Their species evolved on a world with 1/5 of Earth's gravity. Out here, near Jupiter's orbit, the combined gravitational forces would crush their fragile bodies if they tried to step outside their ship. "Send out a distress call," Lyra ordered. "Mark it as urgent. We need help from any nearby ships." May's fingers danced across the console as she broadcast their emergency signal. The response came faster than they expected, but it wasn't what they hoped for. "Incoming transmission," the computer announced. A rough, strong voice filled their control room. "This is the maintenance vessel Heavy Lifter responding to your distress call. We're about 30 minutes from your position. What's your situation?" Lyra felt her heart sink. She recognized that voice pattern. It was a human, a Deathworlder. Their database labeled humans as Class 5 heavy gravity species, creatures who evolved on a planet with crushing gravity and deadly levels of oxygen. "Should we accept their help?" Iris whispered, her wings now completely still with fear. "I've heard stories about humans. They can break bones just by touching species like us." Another warning light flashed on their panel. The engine's containment field was failing faster than expected. May checked their options on the display. "Captain, there are no other ships within range. At our current rate of deterioration, we have less than 2 hours before complete engine failure." Lyra closed her eyes for a moment. They had no choice. "This is research vessel Starseeker," she responded to the transmission. "We have a critical engine failure with possible radiation leakage. Our crew," she hesitated, then added, "we are a low-gravity species. We cannot perform external repairs ourselves." There was a pause, then the human voice returned, sounding remarkably cheerful. "No problem at all. I'm Tom, chief engineer on the Heavy Lifter. Just hold your position and try to maintain your containment field. I've got all the gear needed for high-rad repairs." The three alien crew members exchanged worried looks as they acknowledged the response. They had all studied the historical records. Humans were classified as one of the most durable species in known space. They could survive radiation that would kill most beings, work in pressure differentials that would crush others, and lift weights that would tear their own bodies apart. "Do you think the stories are true?" May asked quietly. "About humans working in raw space without protection. About them surviving in conditions that would kill any normal species." Lyra watched the maintenance vessel's approach on their screen. It was huge compared to their sleek research ship, built with the brutal functionality that marked human engineering. "We're about to find out," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. "May the stars help us all." The red warning lights continued to flash, and the engine's dying sounds grew louder. In 30 minutes, they would meet their first human. None of them knew whether to be relieved or terrified. The Heavy Lifter's docking procedure was surprisingly gentle for such a large ship. Lyra and her crew watched through the viewing screen as the massive maintenance vessel lined up with their airlock. The human ship looked rough and practical, with thick metal plates and heavy-duty equipment visible on its hull. "Preparing for dock," Tom's voice came through their communication system. Your artificial gravity is set to 0.2 Earth standard, correct? Yes, Lyra replied, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. That's the maximum our bodies can handle. A deep chuckle came through the speaker. No problem. I'll adjust my mag boots accordingly. Don't want to put dents in your nice floor. May and Iris exchanged worried looks. The casual way the human talked about their ship's delicate structure was unsettling. Their vessel's floors would crack under too much pressure, yet he spoke about dents as if they were a minor concern. The airlock cycled, and they heard heavy footsteps approaching. All three crew members moved back instinctively as the inner door opened. Tom stepped through, and they got their first look at a human in an EVA suit. He was enormous compared to them, the suit making him look even bigger. The protective gear was scratched and worn, showing signs of countless repairs and spacewalks. What scared them most was how easily he moved in it, as if the heavy suit weighed nothing at all. "Ladies," he said, his voice now coming directly through his helmet speakers, "let's take a look at that engine problem." He paused, noticing their nervous postures. "Don't worry, I've worked with low-grav species before. See." He lifted his foot, showing the modified mag boots, all set to treat your ship like fine china. Iris, being the ship's engineer, forced herself to step forward. "The radiation shield is cracking," she explained, her wings trembling slightly. "The containment field is at 47% and falling." Tom nodded, checking some readings on his suit's arm display. "Yeah, I'm picking up the radiation spike. Pretty nasty leak you've got there." He spoke so casually about radiation levels that would be lethal to their species. "Mind if I check your engine room?" They led him through the ship's corridors, watching in amazement as he moved with careful precision despite his size. Every step was measured, every movement controlled. The stories didn't mention that humans could be so careful. In the engine room, Tom's expertise became apparent. He moved from panel to panel, checking readings and examining systems with practiced ease. The aliens were surprised to see him using their technical equipment without any difficulty. "Ah, here's your problem," he said, pointing to a display showing the outer hull. "Micrometeoroid impact. Punched right through your outer radiation shielding. Created a cascade failure in the containment system." He traced the damage path with one thick, gloved finger. "Going to need an EVA to patch this up." "An EVA?" May gasped. "But the radiation levels outside air. About 50 rems per hour." Tom finished, checking his readings. "Not great, but my suit can handle it. Got about 3 hours of work time before I hit safety limits." He said this as if discussing a mild inconvenience rather than radiation levels that would kill their species in minutes. Lyra felt compelled to speak up. "Mr. Tom, our database says these conditions are dangerous even for humans." Tom shrugged, the gesture strange in his bulky suit. "Risky, sure, but nothing compared to that reactor cleanup I did on Mars last year. Besides, your ship's about to lose containment completely if we don't fix it. Rather take a bit of radiation than let that happen." The three alien crew members watched in stunned silence as he began preparing his repair equipment. They had always thought of humans as dangerous brutes, but here was one willing to risk radiation exposure just to help them. "You might want to stay in the forward section while I work," Tom advised, checking his tools. "Your radiation tolerance is a lot lower than mine. I'll have this patched up before you know it." As they headed to safety, May whispered to her companions, "Maybe the stories about humans got some things wrong." From the safety of the forward section, the alien crew watched their ship's external cameras with a mixture of fear and fascination. Tom had insisted on doing a full external inspection before starting the repairs, and now they could see him walking on their ship's hull as casually as if he were taking a stroll in a park. "Look at how he moves," Iris whispered, her wings fluttering with nervous energy. The magnetic boots should make walking difficult, but he's so fluid. On the screen, Tom reached the damaged section of the hull. His voice came through their communication system, steady and professional. "Well, it's worse than I thought. That meteoroid didn't just punch through your radiation shielding. It cracked your secondary containment layer too." Lyra felt her heart sink. "Can it be fixed?" "Sure," Tom replied cheerfully. "But it's going to be tricky. I'll need to cut away the damaged section and weld on a new plate. The radiation's pretty hot out here, though. Your repair robots would fry in minutes." But how will you do it?" May asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "Our database says human bodies can't handle more than about 400 rems before serious damage." Tom finished her sentence. "True, but my suit's rated for this kind of work. Plus, humans have pretty good radiation repair mechanisms in our cells. Perks of evolving on a planet with natural radiation, I guess." The aliens watched as Tom pulled tools from his suit's utility pack. Each movement was precise, despite the bulky gloves he wore. He attached a cutting tool to the hull and began removing the damaged section. "Amazing," Iris muttered, studying his technique. "He's doing manually what our automated systems would need 3 different robotic arms to accomplish." The work continued for an hour. Tom kept up a running commentary, explaining each step of the repair process. The aliens found themselves drawn into his explanations, their fear gradually being replaced by professional interest. "See, the trick is to layer the radiation shielding," Tom explained as he worked. "First a reflective layer, then an absorption layer, then another reflective layer. Your original design was good, but I'm adding an extra absorption layer. Should help prevent this from happening again." Suddenly, their ship's computer announced, "Warning, radiation spike detected. Dangerous levels approaching repair zone." "Tom," Lyra called out urgently, "you need to come back inside." "The radiation. Just a few more minutes," Tom replied calmly. "I've got the new plate almost sealed. If I stop now, we'll have to start over." He continued working, his movements still steady despite the danger. The aliens could see the radiation readings climbing on their displays, numbers that made their skin crawl, yet the human kept working. "There," Tom announced finally. "Primary seal complete. Now for the final layer of shielding." His voice showed no sign of stress or fear, just professional focus. May checked the ship's readings. "The containment field is stabilizing," she reported, amazement clear in her voice. "It's actually working better than before." They watched as Tom applied the final touches to the repair, his movements still precise despite having worked in lethal radiation for over an hour. When he finally finished, he took a moment to admire his work. "Pretty good job, if I say so myself," he said, sounding satisfied. "Should hold better than the original hull section. Want to come check my work, Iris?" The alien engineer shook her head quickly. "I trust your expertise," she said. "The readings confirm the repair is superior to our original specifications." As Tom made his way back to the airlock, Lyra realized something had changed. They no longer saw him as just a dangerous Deathworlder. He was a professional who had risked his own safety to help them, using his species' natural abilities not to harm, but to protect. "Humans," May said softly, "are not what we expected at all." The airlock cycled as Tom stepped back inside the ship. His EVA suit was covered in a fine layer of space dust, making it look even more worn than before. The alien crew watched anxiously as he checked the radiation readings on his suit's display. "How bad is it?" Lyra asked, concerned about the radiation exposure he'd endured for their sake. Tom glanced at the numbers and shrugged. "About 300 rems. Nothing a few days of rest won't fix. Human bodies are pretty good at handling radiation damage." He spoke about it as casually as if discussing a minor sunburn. May couldn't help herself. She pulled out her scientific scanner and pointed it at Tom. "Your body temperature is elevated, and I'm detecting increased cellular activity. Are these your radiation repair mechanisms at work?" "Probably," Tom said, checking his suit's seals. Our cells start fixing radiation damage pretty much right away. It's not perfect, but it keeps us alive in space." He paused, looking at their fascinated expressions. "Want to see something really interesting?" Before they could answer, he began removing his helmet. All three aliens gasped. "Stop!" Iris cried out. "The radiation." "It's fine," Tom assured them, lifting the helmet clear. "The repair is solid. Radiation levels in here are back to normal." His face was covered in a light sheen of sweat, but he was smiling. "See, humans can handle a lot more than most species think." The aliens stared at his exposed face with a mixture of horror and amazement. They had never seen a Deathworlder up close before. His sturdy bone structure and dense muscle mass spoke of his high-gravity origins, but his expression was kind. "Your species evolved with this kind of resilience?" May asked, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her caution. "It seems impossible." Tom was about to answer when the ship's computer interrupted. "Warning. Spatial anomaly detected. Gravitational disturbance approaching." Lyra rushed to the control panel. "Something's wrong with Jupiter's magnetic field. It's creating a gravity wave, pushing debris towards us." Through the viewing window, they could see it. A cloud of space rocks and debris, ranging from dust-sized particles to chunks bigger than their ship, all being pushed their way by Jupiter's powerful magnetic field. "How long until impact?" Tom asked, his voice turning serious. 3 minutes, May reported, her antennae quivering. "Our shields won't hold against that much debris." Tom was already putting his helmet back on. "Get to your safe room," he ordered. "I'll see what I can do from outside." "But you just absorbed a dangerous radiation dose," Lyra protested. "Your body needs time to recover." Tom sealed his helmet with a click. "No time for that now. Your ship's hull is too fragile to take those impacts. I've got an idea, but I need to work fast." Before they could argue further, he was cycling through the airlock again. On their external cameras, they watched him move quickly across the hull, carrying something from his tool pack. "What is he doing?" Iris wondered aloud, her wings trembling as the debris field grew closer. They got their answer moments later as Tom began attaching small devices to their hull. "These are magnetic deflectors," his voice came through the comm system. "We use them for construction in asteroid fields. Should help push away the smaller pieces." The debris was getting closer. They could see individual rocks now, tumbling toward them at frightening speeds. "Tom, please come back inside," Lyra called out. "It's too dangerous." "Almost done," he replied calmly. "Just 2 more deflectors to set up. Trust me, I've worked in worse conditions during the Mars station construction." The aliens watched in stunned silence as the human continued his work, seemingly unconcerned by the approaching danger. To them, the vacuum of space was a hostile, deadly environment. To Tom, it was just another day at the office. The first pieces of debris hit the magnetic deflectors with tiny flashes of light. Tom's devices were working, pushing away the smaller rocks and dust particles. But the aliens could see larger objects approaching, chunks of space rock that no magnetic field could stop. "Impact in 30 seconds. May called out, her voice shaking. "Tom, there's a large asteroid fragment heading straight for us." Through the external cameras, they watched Tom turn to face the approaching danger. The asteroid piece was nearly as big as their ship's engine section, tumbling end over end as it approached. "I see it," Tom replied calmly. "The deflectors can't handle something that big. Time for Plan B." He pushed off from the hull, his suit's thrusters carrying him toward the heavy lifter. "What are you doing?" Lyra asked, watching anxiously as he disappeared into his ship's cargo bay. "Getting the right tool for the job," came his reply. Moments later, they saw him emerge with something that made their hearts stop. A massive mining laser, the kind used for breaking up asteroids in space. 20 seconds to impact," May announced. Tom positioned himself between the 2 ships, bracing his legs against their hull with his magnetic boots. The mining laser looked enormous, but he handled it with practiced ease. Fun fact about humans, Tom said as he aimed the laser. We're really good at tool use. Our brains are wired for it. Plus, the high gravity we evolved in gave us the strength to handle heavy equipment. The asteroid fragment grew larger on their screens. They could now see its cratered surface clearly, scared by countless space impacts. 10 seconds. Tom fired the mining laser. A brilliant beam of energy shot out, striking the tumbling rock. Where a normal mining laser would take hours to cut through an asteroid this size, Tom was doing something different. He wasn't trying to cut it. He was heating one side unevenly. The thermal stress should, Tom muttered, adjusting his aim slightly. The asteroid fragment suddenly cracked, splitting into smaller pieces as the uneven heating caused it to break apart. The pieces went spinning off in different directions, missing both ships. But they weren't safe yet. More debris was coming. Multiple impacts incoming. Eris called out, watching her instruments. The deflectors are overloading. Tom didn't waste time responding. He moved along the hull with incredible speed, firing the mining laser in quick bursts. Each shot was precisely aimed, breaking up larger debris or deflecting it away from the ships. His movements were a strange dance in zero gravity, using his magnetic boots to anchor himself while handling the massive mining laser as if it weighed nothing. The aliens watched in amazement as this single human defended both ships from what should have been certain destruction. Every move was calculated, every shot precise. Where their own species would have needed complex computer systems and automated defenses, Tom was doing it all manually, relying on human strength, reflexes, and spatial awareness. Debris field intensity dropping. May reported after what felt like hours but was really only minutes. We're going to make it. The last few rocks drifted past harmlessly, deflected by Tom's quick work with the mining laser. When it was finally clear, he lowered the weapon and let out a long breath that fogged his helmet slightly. Well, he said, his voice showing the first signs of tiredness. That was a bit more excitement than I usually get on a repair job. The aliens stared at their screens in stunned silence. They had just watched a single human do what would have taken an entire crew of their best automated systems to accomplish, and he had done it while already recovering from radiation exposure, using simple tools and raw physical capability. How? Iris finally asked. How did you know that would work? Experience, Tom replied, beginning to secure the mining laser. When you grow up on a death world, you learn to solve problems creatively. Now, who's up for some coffee? All this spacewalking makes me thirsty. 3 months after the emergency repair near Jupiter, Lyra stood before the Galactic Science Council, her silver skin gleaming under the chamber's lights. Behind her, a large screen showed footage from their ship's external cameras, images of Tom working in space, defending their ship from debris, and carefully handling their delicate equipment. As you can see, she said, her voice clear and confident, our previous understanding of humans was incomplete. Yes, they evolved on a high-gravity death world. Yes, they can survive conditions that would kill most species. But there's so much more to them than that. The council members watched with intense interest as the screen showed Tom installing the magnetic deflectors, his movements precise despite his size and strength. In the 3 months since our encounter, Lyra continued, we've established a joint research program with the Human Space Engineering Corps. The results have been remarkable. She gestured, and new images appeared on the screen. Human engineers working alongside her species scientists, each contributing their unique abilities to solve problems. May stepped forward next, her antennae moving excitedly as she spoke. Human cellular repair mechanisms have helped us develop better radiation shielding. Their practical experience has improved our engine designs, and in return, our theoretical models have helped them advance their space travel technology by decades. In the audience, Tom sat watching, wearing a specially designed chair to support his weight. He smiled as Iris took her turn to speak, her wings catching the light. We used to think that coming from a death world made humans dangerous, Iris said. Now we understand that it made them adaptable. They don't just survive hardship, they learn from it. They don't just endure challenges, they find creative ways to overcome them. And most importantly, they're willing to share what they've learned. The screen showed new images, human ships working alongside alien vessels, combining their strengths. Heavy lifter crews performing repairs that would have been impossible for automated systems, while alien scientists provided advanced calculations and theoretical insights. Our recommendation, Lyra concluded, is to formally remove the warning classification from human space and open full diplomatic relations. Their worlds may be too dangerous for us to visit, but their people have proven to be valuable allies. The council chambers erupted in discussion. Tom watched as various alien species that had previously avoided contact with humans began talking excitedly about possibilities for cooperation. After the presentation, Tom met with the 3 crew members who had changed his life as much as he had changed theirs. "Not bad," he said, grinning. "Though you left out the part where you all thought I was going to break your ship just by walking on it." Lyra laughed, a sound that would have been unthinkable 3 months ago, when she first met this dangerous human. "Well, we had to maintain some diplomatic courtesy. Though I must admit, watching the council's faces when they saw you handling that mining laser was quite satisfying." Speaking of which, May added, checking her ever-present scanner, "The new joint research team wants to study how humans achieve such precise control over heavy equipment. Would you be willing to help with some demonstrations?" "Happy to," Tom replied. "As long as you help us understand more about your theoretical models. That new engine design we're working on together is going to revolutionize space travel." As they walked together toward the research center, aliens and humans side by side, Iris spread her wings thoughtfully. "You know what's amazing?" she said. "If our engine hadn't failed that day, if we hadn't been forced to accept help from a dangerous Deathworlder, we would have missed out on all of this." "That's the thing about space," Tom replied, carefully matching his pace to his smaller companions. "It has a way of bringing people together, showing us that we're stronger when we work together than when we let our fears keep us apart." The stars shone brightly through the station's windows, promising new adventures and discoveries for this unlikely team of friends who had learned to see past their differences and find strength in diversity. 3 months after the emergency repair near Jupiter, Lyra stood before the Galactic Science Council, her silver skin gleaming under the chamber's lights. Behind her, a large screen showed footage from their ship's external cameras, images of Tom working in space, defending their ship from debris, and carefully handling their delicate equipment. "As you can see," she said, her voice clear and confident, "our previous understanding of humans was incomplete. Yes, they evolved on a high-gravity death world. Yes, they can survive conditions that would kill most species. But there's so much more to them than that." The council members watched with intense interest as the screen showed Tom installing the magnetic deflectors, his movements precise despite his size and strength. "In the 3 months since our encounter," Lyra continued, "we've established a joint research program with the Human Space Engineering Corps. The results have been remarkable." She gestured, and new images appeared on the screen. Human engineers working alongside her species scientists, each contributing their unique abilities to solve problems. May stepped forward next, her antennae moving excitedly as she spoke. "Human cellular repair mechanisms have helped us develop better radiation shielding. Their practical experience has improved our engine designs, and in return, our theoretical models have helped them advance their space travel technology by decades." In the audience, Tom sat watching, wearing a specially designed chair to support his weight. He smiled as Iris took her turn to speak, her wings catching the light. "We used to think that coming from a death world made humans dangerous," Iris said. "Now we understand that it made them adaptable. They don't just survive hardship, they learn from it. They don't just endure challenges, they find creative ways to overcome them. And most importantly, They're willing to share what they've learned. The screen showed new images, human ships working alongside alien vessels, combining their strengths. Heavy lifter crews performing repairs that would have been impossible for automated systems, while alien scientists provided advanced calculations and theoretical insights. Our recommendation, Lyra concluded, is to formally remove the warning classification from human space and open full diplomatic relations. Their worlds may be too dangerous for us to visit, but their people have proven to be valuable allies. The council chambers erupted in discussion. Tom watched as various alien species that had previously avoided contact with humans began talking excitedly about possibilities for cooperation. After the presentation, Tom met with the 3 crew members who had changed his life as much as he had changed theirs. "Not bad," he said, grinning. "Though you left out the part where you all thought I was going to break your ship just by walking on it." Lyra laughed, a sound that would have been unthinkable 3 months ago, when she first met this dangerous human. "Well, we had to maintain some diplomatic courtesy. Though I must admit, watching the council's faces when they saw you handling that mining laser was quite satisfying." Speaking of which, May added, checking her ever-present scanner, "The new joint research team wants to study how humans achieve such precise control over heavy equipment. Would you be willing to help with some demonstrations?" "Happy to," Tom replied. "As long as you help us understand more about your theoretical models. That new engine design we're working on together is going to revolutionize space travel." As they walked together toward the research center, aliens and humans side by side, Iris spread her wings thoughtfully. "You know what's amazing," she said. "If our engine hadn't failed that day, if we hadn't been forced to accept help from a dangerous Deathworlder, we would have missed out on all of this." "That's the thing about space," Tom replied, carefully matching his pace to his smaller companions. "It has a way of bringing people together, showing us that we're stronger when we work together than when we let our fears keep us apart." The stars shone brightly through the station's windows, promising new adventures and discoveries for this unlikely team of friends who had learned to see past their differences and find strength in diversity.